Yeah, next story comes from securityaffairs.com, and the title here is Phishing as a Service, Rockstar 2FA continues to be prevalent.
Once again, the names are just too cool.
They are.
You gotta rename this stuff.
Rockstar.
It should be like Seeping Wound. Oozing Corpuscle.
I think we need to come up with a better, definitely a better naming scheme for these things. But what I found most interesting about this, we've talked in the past, especially past couple of weeks, about the increasing prevalence of attacks that bypass what I'll call traditional two-factor authentication. And by that, I don't mean, SMS is very broken. We know it. I'm not going to rehash that. But, the kind of the least common denominator standard has been the one-time password, the little password generators that we all use to log into our banks and to websites and whatnot. And the challenge is that some enterprising criminals have figured out how to construct attacks that capture those and then kind of replay it. So as you're logging in, it looks like you are logging into the service you're intending to, but you're actually feeding your credentials into, the attacker's system, who then almost real time uses that to log in. And so that might sound like some really advanced and obscure attack that almost no one would be able to perform. But what this is pointing out is that in order to do that, it will cost you about $200 for 2 weeks, or $350 a month. And for that cost, you get like a really easy to use interface that's very configurable, that walks you through how to configure this. It gives you custom, phishing lures and whatnot to entice people to click and follow the attack path, which would then result in you obtaining kind of the full set of credentials for them. Obviously, it doesn't change the fact that two-factor is still on there, but it allows it allows an attacker to obtain an authenticated session to whatever service the person is trying to log into. And so from that angle, let's face it, a lot of services these days have, once you log in with your authentication or your two-factor token, you don't keep getting, reprompted for it. You get some kind of a cookie or a session token or what have you that allows you to be authenticated for some period of time. And they're taking advantage of that fact, which would then allow them to masquerade as you. And this is, going to, as I talk about in the article, lead to increased instances of business email compromise, where you have like the CEO or the CFO trying to scam money out of companies by changing bank account numbers or requesting checks and that sort of thing. But it's interesting that the landscape is changing a lot faster than I would have thought, and it is driving us, I think, to alternative multi-factor schemes like Passkeys a lot faster than perhaps we may have been ready for. And by the way, just to plug for an upcoming episode of Getting Defensive, we did interview Chris Dodson, who I used to work with, and he's super, super smart, but we do talk a lot about passkeys in that discussion.
I'm fighting a sneeze real time, but yes, live show, guys. Yeah, it is interesting. And I do think moving to a phishing resistant authentication mechanism is going to get accelerated by this. The other thing I was thinking about, just as some other options where it's kind of fallen out of favor, but secure web gateways like web proxies can help maybe detect that you're going to not, a bad site. Like it's just recently been registered, or it doesn't match, like the SSL cert doesn't match, or it's like, those web proxies often have a list of like known bad sites. Hopefully somebody else has picked it up and like can flag it. So there's some other potential defenses, but it is an interesting problem. And I think, as with everything, it's an arms race. As soon as we deploy one piece of technology, the bad guys start thinking of really effective means, and they could just keep iterating to overcome that defense. And I think, sadly, we're at a point now with one-time passwords and, as a 2FA standard starting to become weaker and weaker. It's still better than nothing, don't get me wrong, and it's still better than someone just using the same password in multiple places, but it's not as foolproof as it used to be.
Yeah, but I definitely think the prudent security team will be starting to explore passkeys and other phishing-resistant multi-factor authentication schemes right now. Those can take a while to implement, but it's not. Now is the time. Now is the time to do anything.
The tough part is it's easier to control within your own organization. It's these third parties, all these SaaS tools and vendors and websites and such that we need to also get some adoption going and then get people to understand why this matters. I think we've got a big educational learning curve to go through to I think people are aware passkeys exist, but as we talked about in the other show that you mentioned, I don't know that a lot of people understand the value of them yet, of why it matters.
No, I don't think
password,
so.
Right? It's just different password, right? No, not exactly.
The good news.
Keep an eye out for that show.
Yeah, absolutely. The good news in all that, and again, we talk about this some more, is that done right, passkeys can be actually easier. So,
you know what else is easier?
Go ahead, finish your joke.
No. Sometimes you just gotta leave it hanging out there. Let him ponder. Let him wonder. Let him think. You just gotta subvert expectations.
Okay,